Hello, and welcome to Of the People. I'm Robert Chernin.
And I'm Ericka Redic.
And we are back for another episode of News, Politics, and as usual, our large, Ericka.
Extremely large.
And there you go, talking about size again. Irreverence, but we're here.
We need a lot of irreverence today, Robert. I'm telling you.
We do.
Now.
So I want to just let some people know we're having a special guest.
Yes.
Next segment.
Yes.
Screwed that up, but that's okay. Next segment, Jay Shepard, RNC committeeman, deep political insider. You don't want to miss that. And of course, in the news this week, the Durham report. We're going to cover that in the third segment of our show. Stay tuned. Yeah, exactly. And I can already feel you getting revved up for that. But
I am ripped, Robert. I am beside myself.
You mean there's two of you?
Literally, there's like six of me. That's how beside myself I am.
Does your husband know about this?
Wait, how many people play basketball on the court? I got a full court press. I'm so beside myself.
Got it. So
I don't even know if I use that
let's hold
correctly.
the full court press until segments 2 or 3. And remember, Mr. Shepard is a guest on this show. So even though he's a deep political insider, and I know you hate deep political inside stuff, he's a guest. But
I know.
But before we go there, I want to go back to, and if I sing, right, I left my heart in San Francisco. Remember we were talking about San Francisco?
Oh, no. Are they back in the news again this week?
Well, they are back in the news. Well, first of all, Dave Chappelle, the comedian, basically did a show in San Francisco and basically said, and I can't use that word, but it starts with an F, happened here. He said this place is now, half, it's half Glee and it's half, what's that show with all the androids and not the androids, the the guys that come back from the dead. What are those? What are they
zombies, called? Like the Walking Dead or whatever.
Yeah, the Walking, right?
Yeah.
But I want to stay with San Francisco because it just seems with California because it just seems like everything happens in California. So, and it is such people call it the West Coast, right? I call it the left coast. Just that whole political thing. But
yeah. But and the whole coast, even really.
But check this out. I want your reaction to this because I was just not to get you stirred up. So there's a restaurant, I think it's called Rainbow Oaks in Fallbrook, California, where the national anthem was playing on TV, and several people, 20 people in the restaurant got up and stood up, put their hands over their heart, when the national anthem was playing.
Yeah.
This caused one of the wait staff to absolutely revolt and say, "This is dystopian. How could they do that? This is like something out of a sci-fi, horror movie."
The national anthem,
right? But only in California, right? So, have we gotten to the point where when people, because I understand that, right? People stand for the national anthem. I mean, that's a sign of respect for your country. But there's nothing that shows you the Great Divide. More than that.
I'm sorry. That is super funny. That is what demonstrates. Okay. Okay.
Right.
So in California, where there's
Rainbow
literally,
by the way,
there's
God bless
apps,
Rainbow Oak, right.
Where there's literally apps so you can report and avoid human feces and like drug paraphernalia. And they think that the sign of a dystopian nightmare is some patriots standing for the national anthem.
Mm-hmm. That's why it's the left coast. They're left behind. I would like to leave them behind, right? So
I'm just saying, if we do have a national divorce, as some people are calling for, here's my proposal, Robert. We give them the West Coast. We give them the West Coast. It is it's on that side is China and Russia, right? So we got problems over there anyway. All the states up the left coast, Washington, Oregon, California, they're all crazy. They've all lost their mind. What was it Oregon just passed was it Oregon or Washington with the where it's legal to bring your child there from out of state and do gender reaffirming care, even if the other parent, like, you can kidnap your kid to that state. Basically,
excuse me,
Vermont just passed it too.
I was going to say that's Vermont, isn't it?
Vermont passed it too. It's either Washington or Oregon also passed something like that. Oh my God, yeah, okay. Can we all agree to just forfeit the West Coast, Oregon, Washington, and California, and then all the rest of us, we have the rest of the country to live like normal human beings? Can we do that?
Well, unfortunately, it's not contiguous, right? The land masses, works for me. Which, I mean, think about it. This whole thing with Title 42 on the border, right?
Oh,
So I was talking to some people, and I was like, look, if border, language, and culture defines a country, then I guess we have no country, right? Because we certainly have no borders, unless, of course, you count the Atlantic and Pacific Ocean. But north and south, the borders are porous. We don't have a common language. And based on the fact that, and it was posted on TikTok, that this woman found it to be offensive and dystopian and something, right out of a sci-fi horror novel, that these people stood for the national anthem. The thing that gets me, so I went to school in Canada. And no, I was not dodging the draft. But I went to school in Canada.
Okay.
And I had coming back to America, when I understood the Canadian system, and I understood, and I lived there for 5 years, and I understood how we were viewed by the rest of the world, I came back more patriotic, not less. So it amazes me. And of course, it's all things California. I mean, right? So, the other thing in the news in California, and we're starting with the WTO section about the outrage. They now, the state put together the reparations task force to discuss reparations.
Up in Oakland and
actually, it was throughout the state. They've now issued their findings. They've issued their findings, and one of their lead findings is they want an apology from Ronald Reagan for the term welfare queen because it was racist back then. I kid you not.
What does that have to?
Well, they want a lot of things. They want $1.2 million. They want an apology because there aren't enough black doctors and lawyers in California. And wait, gets even better. So this is exactly what they said. And you know me.
Yeah.
You don't believe what I say.
Don't believe your lion eyes. Right.
Go right to the source. So these guys have said the legislature must formally apologize on its own behalf and on behalf of the state of California for all the harms delineated, I need some light here, facilitated, enhanced, and permitted the institution of chattel slavery and its legacy and the ongoing badges and incidents of slavery that form the systemic structures of discrimination and imbuing racial prejudice throughout society through segregation, public and private discrimination, and unequal distribution of state and federal funding. And on top of that, they want an apology from Ronald Reagan, or from the state, because Reagan was governor, for the term welfare queen because it's racist. I mean, this is what they're spending their time on. You have people who are offended by people who stand for the national anthem, and they want an apology plus money, of course. In California, because of racism, the original sin, according to them, in the country. So I got one other point for you, and I want your comment. I have lots of issues with that, but the real issue?
Tell me.
There was never any slavery in California.
That's why I was like, hold on, wait a second. They want an apology for chattel slavery or whatever, but California literally never had slavery in its charter.
Right.
So what are they apologizing for?
I see you're still getting your lips to work today.
I don't understand. There's some of this stuff that, again, that is so upsetting, Robert. What's the number they came up with for this? Like $700 trillion? No, it was going to be like...
Oh, you mean the total cost?
Yeah, it was going to be more than the entire world's GDP.
Well, no. It was $800 billion, and Governor Newsom has backed off that because Governor Newsom empowered the state legislature to form this committee, and then when the committee gave their results and he saw the price tag, he's now backed off on it and saying, well, we really can't afford that, right? So it just only in California, and you just can't make this stuff up.
I
Look, if
love
you don't,
it.
ladies
And then we
gentlemen,
don't, and again, we still don't end up having conversations about real, actual problems.
No, of course not.
We're so distracted talking about something that is unreasonable and unrealistic and ridiculous and really ultimately just more welfare in the end. If you don't like being called a welfare queen, it's interesting that you don't that you're coming out with your hand out demanding money, but whatever. It just is a distraction to me from what the real problems are and the areas that we can make real change and have real growth in this country. And it's just a shame.
well, but let's talk about this whole welfare queen concept for a second.
Yeah.
So Reagan says this in the 60s when he was governor. I think it was like 67 or 69. And he then used it again very effectively when he was running for president in 72 and I'm sorry, in 76 and 80. I think it was 76 and 80. I got to get my numbers right.
Okay.
But the whole concept was that there were these people who were living solely on the government dole, and the more money you got, the more children you had. I'm sorry, the more money, welfare money you got from the government living on the public dole, and it was a symbol of irresponsibility, but it was also a symbol of government overreach. So what they ended up So what they end up saying again about this woman, let me get to my little piece of paper here because you know me with my notes, is welfare queen is a racist term to denigrate primarily single black women who live on government benefits. So forget about the racial component here. Just the fact that some people were living solely on the government dole, and that was okay. Like the government, I mean, we're going back to Obama money, right? I'm going to get me some of that Obama money. Remember that?
Yes.
You're going to live on the government dole. I mean, why is that okay? So this whole welfare queen concept, which I guess if Anheuser-Busch stock drops anymore, they might, be the next welfare queen, but who knows? So what do you think about that?
I remember hearing that term welfare queen a long time ago, and it never had anything to do with race. I grew up in Vermont, which at the time of my youth was predominantly white. It still is, but back then it was like 99.9% white. And so oh my God, it's just more and more separation of people. Oh, more reason to think that somebody's a racist, and we got to divide each other, and we got to, Reagan, you better apologize. Right? We got to tear down all of the heroes of the right because Reagan was really just a terrible person. And it the whole point, you know what, Robert? Really what I think it is, we need to bring shame back. I think I think that this idea that we are getting rid of shame in our culture, or that there's something wrong with shaming people for bad behavior, I think is a real problem.
Wait a minute. That's a slippery slope. Look, and I wanted to let you finish, but that's a slippery slope. Shaming people is like canceling people, right? The whole cancel culture, that's a really slippery slope to go down. I don't mind, vociferous debate, right? I don't mind having really rigorous, out in the open debate in the public square. Bring it on. Part of my argument is the other side, the other camp, as we call them, cannot hold an argument at all, which is why they try to silence everything through political correctness. But
that's not the same. Like, what cancel culture and shame are not the same thing. What there has been an attempt at in our culture is to say that all behavior and all ways of being are equally the same and have equally the same value. And they do not. And so this idea that we shouldn't take pride in the things that we do, that we shouldn't have pride in our country, that we shouldn't have pride in our work and things like that, and we should get rid of all shame, and that means all behavior and all everything is equally as okay, I think does extreme harm to our society. And I'm not saying we should run around like wagging our finger and being mean to people and rah, 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 rah. But I think that it is okay, and I think that it is necessary to call out behavior that is harmful to society, that is harmful to culture, and harmful to the people engaging in the behavior. That is, I think, why we see such a rise in some of this dependency on the government. There's now no shame in being dependent on the government. There's no shame in saying, you know what, I'm just not going to work. I'm not I mean, young people nowadays, they're like, screw this. I'm just not going to work. I'm going to stay on unemployment and live off of whatever I can live off of during the pandemic, blah, 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 blah. So I hear what you're saying about, cancel culture being a problem. Bringing shame back and shame and cancel culture, not the same thing.
I don't think that shame is something that you can foist or force upon someone. I think shame is something you either feel or you don't. I think the real issue, I think there's two issues. I think you hit one of the two issues. The first issue is one man's terrorist is another man's freedom fighter. There is no right and wrong. That's sort of like Life Springs and Est from the 80s, which is, well, that works for you, man, but that's not my truth, right? And that's sort of permeated from the West Coast or the left coast back east, right? But the other part of it is they don't teach civics. How can you have pride in your country? How can you have pride in yourself if you're not taught that? If you're not taught about the honor and the history of your country, if you're not taught about those things, which again, when I went to school in Canada, right, it helped because I got to see my country from a third world, from another country's perspective. I guess Canada probably is a third world, especially with Trudeau there, but that's a whole different conversation, right? So it's just, it starts with education, right? And there's this whole issue with, obviously we've talked about whether it's CRT and it's mutilating children and transgender. By the way, my girlfriend, the hopping hobbit, is back in the news again. Did you miss her? Well, she is. She hops a lot and she's a hobbit. What do you want from my life?
I love it.
So Randy Weingarten, the president of the American Federation of Teachers, is basically now reaching out to all her members and with this new contract they have with Life, whatever the company is, to help them eliminate any social media posts that could be controversial. How do you like them apples?
What?
Oh yeah, look it up.
Wait.
So they're concerned, right? Because now people are, look, when you want to research someone, what do? You go to their social media. When a teacher makes a statement, you go to their social media, and then lo and behold, you see all these posts talking about these, white Christo, Christo, or however you pronounce it, fascist, right? That kind of thing. So they're trying to whitewash, or they're trying to eliminate all these posts in people's social media. So one of the missions now, big education, which is what it is, has gone to their membership and said, let us help you to get rid of any potentially controversial social media posts. Because as if they're going to go underground, and that way, we're going to be able to continue control of education because you're not going to know who the bad teachers are. I mean, isn't that what she's saying?
It feels like, I think it's, how to subvert parental
they're under
eyes.
fire. They're under fire now because parents are now pissed off.
And they're paying attention. They're going to their teachers' social media pages. They're looking at these things. They're seeing what's happening and what's being said. And I mean, I hate to keep invoking George Orwell, but there's so much happening. What is it that goes in and isn't there that's a whole thing where you go back into the paper and you actually change the information. And I mean, that's,
I believe they call that editing.
oh my God. I'm just,
All right.
It's just sunlight is the best disinfectant. Right?
I agree.
And so this is the thing: is
sunlight
Randy
and
Weingarten
transparency
is not stupid, right? We say a lot of times that our political opponents are stupid. We call them names, but they're not. These are not stupid people. They're very astute. Otherwise, they wouldn't have gotten to the positions that they have, and they wouldn't have the control and the power that they do. And so what they're saying is, hey, you guys, your personal opinions and things, and you being so authentic with your emotions and what you believe, kind of causing us a problem. So we're going to go ahead through and we're going to decide what's appropriate for you to have said or not, and we're just going to clean it up for you, okay? Okay.
What they're trying to do is game the system, basically, and they're trying to, again, control the message, right? Isn't that what they do in education? They're trying to control the message because they don't want teachers, because they know better than parents do, and they don't want teachers to be influenced by the parents. They want teachers to be influenced by the curriculum that the AFT or the NEA puts out, because they know better how to raise your children. Look, it goes back to the original point we were talking about shaming or about civics and education and those kinds of things, right? There is no moral right or wrong anymore. They've broken that down. We've talked about it, right? First you go after man's laws, then you go after God's laws. And part of that is also control education. So I just think it's under the radar. Most people didn't see the article. I read this crap incessantly, right? I mean, just to see what's out there. And I just found it to be so disingenuous that now, under the guise of, I don't think the same way I did 15 years ago, so I should be able to sort of, I don't want my history out there forever for people to see. I should be able to edit what people can see on my social media so they only see what I want you to see, which is ridiculous. But it's part of the problem. It's they're not dumb people. You're right. They're smart, and that's why they're doing this.
Well, that's
Folks,
right. Speaking of smart people,
we got to go to break warning. I want you to stay tuned. Next segment, we have the Honorable Jay Shepard, National Committeeman and deep political insider. This is going to be a fun conversation.
It's going to be
Stay
good,
tuned.
guys.
We'll be right back. Tired of seeing your rights stripped away by the politicians in Washington who don't care about you or me? Do you feel like a red dot in a pond of blue dots and feel disconnected? It's time to get connected. The American Center for Education and Knowledge is fighting back to restore America. Get connected. Go to acekfund.org. That's ACEKFUND.org to learn more. Do it now.